about this. David Bowie. Let's dance. Okay. So this is the remaster. I'm just going to get my notes. You can follow me over here. I'm just going to grab my notes. What's really funny, and when you read about David Bowie, he's basically, there's Carmen Rojas, the bassist on Let's Dance. He says David was a genius of putting opposites together. So when you think of opposites, you're thinking of eclectic, you're thinking of different styles of music, and David Bowie intentionally did this. And then when you find out that he heard Stevie Ray Vaughan play in Montreux, and he said, "You're the best urban blues player I've ever heard in my whole life." Eric Clapton was driving along the road, and he heard Let's Dance, and he literally said, "I stopped my car and pulled over and said, who is this guitar player? I want to know, not tomorrow, I need to know now." And he said this, Eric Clapton said this is the only time in his life that he had done this, like where a sound of an electric guitar player stopped him. And what's fascinating about it, as I read at the beginning, David Bowie had this genius knack of juxtaposing opposite sounds. Like we have this choral piece at the beginning, we have this funk that comes in, we have this schizoid trumpet player that comes in at 1/5. Then we have this complete shift where it goes back into the opening, which is the chorus, and he has this famous line of "You should fall in my arms and tremble like a flower." And then a minute later, right after that, you hear these two little licks from Stevie Ray Vaughan, and you're going, what was that? And so this urban blues is being introduced in a funk song with another juxtaposition with percussions that are kind of African sounding, associated then also with some horn trumpet playing, which is schizophrenic. It's just a genius piece of like amalgamation of different styles. So yeah, so Eric Clapton, when he first heard it, said, like, what the heck is this? So if you listen to this song, the very first, like, if you go from 0 to 0/8, 0 to 0/8. Okay, so if you stop right there, that's like almost like the Beatles intro to the song Help. So you have this like a choral thing, which is beginning. So that's one feel. And then immediately you go into and so what's crazy about this as well, so it has this a funk beat, and in the background you hear this wood percussion bongos in the background. So it's like a complete kind of contrast. So you have this one beginning opening, and then it's just juxtaposed with this funk beat that kicks in. And then what's interesting, if you go then to around 0:27 of the song, so you're having this funky beat that's going on, and then you hear this schizoid trumpet player that's occurring. So you have this choral beginning, then you have this funky beat that then starts, and then you have this kind of like percussive stuff which is playing in the background, and then out of nowhere you hear this absolute freak out schizoid trumpet player playing. I'll play it again. So then you have this repeated kind of dum dum ba dum dum ba dum dum dum, and it keeps going on and on. And you're saying, okay, so you've had the choral beginning, percussive kind of a groove, funk which is occurring, schizoid trumpet player that comes in, and finally at 43 you have the melody that comes in. Put on your red shoes and dance the blues. You have the funky percussion. It's like a big brass in the background right now. And then he's a melody on top of it. So you have that going on, and then there's a complete switch which occurs at 117. So it just completely breaks out. It completely breaks out of the funkiness of the song and goes into this kind of like straight bump. Where's it goes yeah, bum 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 bum. So the funkiness is gone, but the melody on top is there. Background kind of choral stuff, which is happening at the very beginning. Break my heart in two. Then of course, so then this is just like at the very beginning of the song. So this is at 142, just like at the very beginning. You have that exact same thing, which then begins at 142. So it's taken that long for the chorus to come back in. So then you hear it again. Here it is again. But in place of it, he now has introduced one of the main themes. Sorry. If you should say, "Fall into my arms and tremble like a flower," like this is the iconic line in "Let's Dance," which is this one right here. Right here. Into my arms and tremble like a flower. So. 1 minute and 53 seconds have gone by. You haven't heard anything at all from Stevie Ray Vaughan. So he hasn't even been introduced. But at 1:57, you hear two tiny little licks of Stevie Ray Vaughan. Here it comes. So, and that's the only thing that you hear from Stevie Ray Vaughan until like 2 minutes later. So you have this like out of nowhere comes this sound, and then what's really interesting later on you'll hear the iconic solo of him playing, and then now it stops. No more. Where's the guitar player? A little bit. Sorry, a little bit. I think that was it. Yeah, that's it. So, and then you hear this kind of whispering of David Bowie, which is over on the top of it. It's melodic and it's kind of soothing. Very kind of a little bit erotic, you know. Comes back in. It's just kind of a whisper of his doing. So then he goes into this bongo. It's a bongo solo at 3:27, which carries on for a long period of time. Here it comes. It goes on and on and on. This song was, in its full version, is over 7 minutes long. It's 7 minutes and 37 seconds long. Unheard of in regards to a song being that long. But it's so packed with interest and diversity and contrast that you just constantly just want to hear it over and over again. So here we have this solo, banjo solo, going for a long period of time. Okay, so remember we had the schizoid trumpet player at the very, very beginning? It comes back again at 5:37 in the song. I'll find it. 5:37. Here comes. Here we go. And it's like unbelievably atonal. So if you're to, I studied classical composition, modern composition, and a lot of it is like completely atonal music, Schoenberg and Berg and whatnot. Or what's fascinating, it reminds me at this period of time where you hear these two saxophone players playing, It reminds me of Stravinsky's Rite of Spring, where you have this like really aggressive rhythm on the bottom, and you have these completely atonal pieces on top. And this is a perfect example of that. I mean, you can't believe that all of this is in the same song. So, but here it goes. You can hear it. At 5:37, it comes in. It'll freak you out how atonal it is. This completely, atonal part, and then finally, you get to hear the thing that you've been longing for. You get to hear Stevie Ray Vaughan coming in at 6:29 of the piece. Here we go. This is what made Eric Clapton stop dead in his tracks. When he heard this solo, he said, "Who the heck is this player?" He was like absolutely, out of his boots. And there's so using Steve. It's written when the song was released in 1983. It became Bowie's first platinum studio album. #1 hit around the world. 7 million copies were sold. Was by far his most successful album. Using Stevie was a stroke of genius on Bowie's part. And all of this, I need to tell you, follow me. All of this comes from this book. I don't know if it's going to be backwards when you look at it, or if you'll be able to see the title. But it's Texas Flood, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Alan Paul, and Alan Allendort. Interestingly enough, Alan Paul, he was the coach of my son in Beijing, soccer. He also had a blues band. His wife is a well-known journalist and editor for major newspapers in New York. And he's like an incredible writer. He's done an amazing thing. This is basically the book on Stevie Ray Vaughan. I highly recommend that you read it. New York Times bestseller, and it's just a pile of information. It's like I'm going to read this little story about Albert King, where it says, we could argue about who's the greatest, but Albert King is in that conversation. This is Jimmy Vaughan, his brother, writing. He was absolutely amazing, and he came to Antoine. This is like Antoine's bar in Austin, Texas, with his great band and all his records. So this is Albert King, who came to Anton's. And then what's interesting, so he says, we're all there. This is in Anton's, and Clifford, Anton, he says it's packed. I'm going to ask Albert to let Stevie sit in. So Stevie at that time is 22 years old. Well, nobody asked Albert King to ever, if anybody could sit in. Albert King was this big gentleman, right here with his electric guitar. And they said that the electric guitar looked like a ukulele in his hands. The guy was just enormous. He was like 6'5". He was left-handed, but he played a right-hand guitar backwards, and he had a pipe that would stick out of his mouth, and he would smoke the pipe while he was doing it. Well, nobody asked Albert King to sit in, so Albert would basically say, this is my gig, go away. That was the rule, but Clifford tells him, no, there's this kid. We call him Little Stevie, and we got to hear him. Albert tells him to do what? to take off. So Albert was a gruff person, and he wouldn't take nonsense. But Clifford didn't give up easily. This is Jimmy Vaughan saying it. Didn't give up easily. So he goes again next night. There's this kid. You got to listen to him. And then Albert King says, now I'm curious. This better be good. So he goes up and plays, and then It says, Stevie was shredding, and Albert turned away his fretboard as if to say, "This young punk is ripping me off. I'm not going to let him see what I'm doing." He was paying big respect to Stevie because he couldn't believe that this skinny little white kid was pulling it off. Stevie was never intimidated. So in this song, and again, I really highly recommend that you guys read this book. It's really a great book. Anyway, in this song, so David Bowie, he actually heard Stevie Ray Vaughan in Montreux in Switzerland, and he came up to Stevie and said, "Whoa, you're the best urban blues, your best urban blues player I've ever heard, and I want you to play in my upcoming album," which he was going to record in New York, which is Let's Dance, of the song Let's Dance. And then also Jackson Browne was there, and he heard him, and he basically told his band, you got to stop what you're doing, you got to put everything down and come listen to this guy. So David Bowie, in putting together the song Let's Dance, with all these different styles that I'm explaining to you, and then at the very end you have this little taste that I said, like at 157 in the song, where you hear Stevie Ray Vaughan just playing a little bit, and you're going, whoa, what was that? And you're wanting to hear more of it, and then finally it comes, like I said, we'll continue to listen to it. Carries on, and Stevie Ray Vaughan is just shredding the whole song, but the whole song Let's Dance is really an eclectic song. It has this choral version that begins, it has this funky beat that occurs, it has schizophrenic atonal trumpet playing that occurs, and has a kind of like an introduction of Stevie Ray Vaughan earlier on at 157, and at the very end, at the climax of the song, you finally get to hear him. He's just, the cat's out of the bag, and there's Stevie Ray Vaughan, and this was his jumping spot, and it was also a huge success for David Bowie in the song. So it's an eclectic song. It's a very, I keep using the word sophisticated, but it really is a well thought out song, and how it's constructed, and David Bowie was a genius, as they say, in bringing opposites together. Not a constant style, but an opposite of styles that would create this energy. And then there's an interesting quote that comes from the book as well. When Stevie Ray Vaughan was doing the solos, there's this one part where he plays a note which is atonal and off, and the engineer is saying, we need to fix this. And David Bowie put his hand on the engineer's hand to stop and said, no, this is really good. I love first takes. And so David Bowie was a genius in understanding that. There was later a riff between Stevie Ray Vaughan and David Bowie in regards to Stevie playing on David Bowie's concerts, but that all worked itself out, and Stevie then launched his career. But it's an absolute great song. I'm a little, as you can see, a little passionate about it because it just has so much energy in it, all different counts, and it just ticks the box in so many dimensions for me as a songwriter. And that's why this song is part of the Eclectic Blues playlist. David Bowie, Let's Dance. I'll talk to you guys next week.